Story 1. I'm Michael Thompson, and I manage Oakwood Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia. It's a quiet job, but it carries weight. You're there for people at their lowest, helping them say goodbye. My days are spent meeting families, arranging funerals, and selling plots. It's not glamorous, but I like being a steady hand for folks in grief. Last spring, I met David Alvarez, a guy in his 30s, who came to buy a plot for his dad. His dad was in hospice, fading fast. David had this thick accent. Mexican, I think, and eyes that told you he cared deeply. He showed me photos of his dad, smiling, kind-faced, way too young to be leaving. It hit me hard, seeing those pictures. You try to stay professional, but sometimes it sneaks up on you. David was spiritual, talked about his dad's soul finding peace, and I nodded along, feeling the weight of his words. We settled on a plot near an old oak tree, a peaceful spot. I shook his hand, told him we'd take care of everything. That was Monday. By Friday, David's dad passed. The funeral was set for Sunday, and I made sure everything was ready. Flowers, chairs, the works. Sunday rolled in heavy with storm clouds. Rain was coming, the kind that soaks you in seconds. In some cultures, they say rain at a funeral means good luck, like the heavens are crying with you. I hope that was true for David. I stood under the awning of the front office, watching the funeral procession pull up. The hearse was first, sleek and black, followed by a line of cars. David was in the one right behind, and when he saw me, he gave a small wave. I waved back, feeling this odd connection, like we were sharing something unspoken. The rain started tapping the awning, soft at first, then harder. I ducked back inside to stay dry, checking my clipboard to make sure I hadn't missed anything. The cemetery was quiet, save for the hum of the storm. Oakwood's an old place, full of mossy headstones and winding paths. It's beautiful in a haunting way, but when you're alone, it can feel like the world's holding its breath. I've never been spooked here, not really. You get used to the silence, the solitude. But that day, something felt off. Maybe it was the storm, or maybe it was David's grief sticking with me. I kept picturing his dad's face from those photos, warm and alive. Now he was gone, and I was part of this final moment. My job was to make sure it went smoothly. No hiccups. I grabbed my keys, ready to hop in the cemetery's pickup truck and follow the procession to the burial site. The rain was picking up, drumming on the roof, and the sky was this deep, bruised gray. I glanced out the window one last time, watching the cars crawl through the gate. It was just another day at Oakwood, I told myself. Just another funeral. But deep down, I felt this itch, like someone was watching from the shadows. I shook it off, chalked it up to the weather, messing with my head. Grief does that sometimes. Makes you see things that aren't there. I stepped outside, pulling my jacket tight, ready to do my part. The funeral at Oakwood Cemetery wrapped up as the rain kept pounding, turning the paths to mud. I stood under my umbrella, watching the family say their final goodbyes to David's dad. Everything went smoothly. No hitches, which is all you can hope for in my line of work. After the crowd left, I climbed into the cemetery's pickup truck and did my usual laps around the grounds, checking for anything out of place. The storm made it hard to see much, just blurry shapes of headstones through the downpour. It was late afternoon, but the clouds made it feel like night. I had a pile of paperwork waiting. Plus, I was closing the cemetery that night, so I headed back to my office to get it done. Oakwood closes at 5:30, and by then, the sky was pitch black, the rain relentless. I did one last drive around to make sure no visitors were left, then swung by the front gate to lock it. The air was warm for early March, but the darkness felt heavy, like it was pressing down on me. Driving back to the office, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. A figure, moving fast down a row of tombstones, then ducking behind a hedge. My stomach twisted. I honked the horn to signal the place was closed, but no one popped out. Grabbing my umbrella, I ran into the rain, heart pounding, and checked behind the hedge. Nothing. Just rows of graves and dripping hedges. I searched for 20 minutes, getting soaked, calling out but found no one. Shaking my head, I drove back to the office, telling myself it was just the storm playing tricks. Inside, I pulled up the CCTV footage, squinting at the grainy, rain-streaked images. Nothing unusual, no movements. I tried to focus on my paperwork, but my eyes kept darting to the screens. Then, out of nowhere, the door to the visitation room slammed shut. I jumped up, yelling, "Hello!" My first thought was the person I'd seen earlier, maybe stuck in the cemetery, looking for help. I stepped into the lobby. Empty. I called out again, heart racing, thinking maybe they'd left when the door slammed. I started checking windows, and at one, I froze. A face stared back at me, blank and unblinking. I stumbled back, a scream catching in my throat. It was an older man, Hispanic, and in that split second, I swear it was David's dad from those photos. My chest tightened. I ran outside, rain soaking me, to where I'd seen him. Gone. No footprints, no rustling bushes, nothing. I stood there, drenched, scanning the darkness, feeling like the cemetery was watching me. Back inside, I locked the door, packed my stuff, and got to my car. I opened and closed the gate one last time, hands shaking, and drove home. My wife asked why I was so quiet, and I just mumbled, "Long day." I keep telling myself I was overworked, that my mind conjured it all. But that face, those eyes, felt so real. Oakwood's always been quiet, but now, every shadow feels alive, like it's waiting for me to look away. I don't know what I saw that night, but it's still there, lingering, making me question everything. Story 2. My name's Ethan Carter, and back when I was younger, I was all about chasing thrills. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and my buddy Ryan was big into metal. I think loud guitars, screaming vocals, the whole deal. We even had our own little band, jamming in garages, dreaming of making it big. One chilly October night, we were bored out of our minds, blasting Metallica in my car, cruising through our rundown town. Memphis has this old, gritty vibe. 18th century buildings, cracked sidewalks, and pockets of poverty that give it character. It was around 2 a.m., and we were itching for something to do. Driving around wasn't cutting it anymore, so I got this dumb idea to check out Forest Hill Cemetery. It's this massive, ancient place, split by a highway, with one side newer and the other straight out of a ghost story. The old part, tucked behind an iron gate, was what called to us. It's got these crumbling, moss-covered graves from the 1800s, sprawled across 20 acres of overgrown paths. I know sneaking into a cemetery at 3 a.m. in a rough town isn't the smartest move, but we were young, reckless, and loved pushing boundaries. Ryan was game, so we parked a block away, music still thumping, and walked to the gate. The air was cold, the wind rattling bare branches, and the streetlights barely touched the darkness. We hopped the rusty iron fence, no problem, and stepped into the old section. It was like walking into another century. Headstones tilted, names faded, some graves so old the writing was gone. We wandered with our phone flashlights, reading what we could, snapping pics, and yeah, acting a bit disrespectful. I'm not proud of it now, but back then, we figured no one living would care about graves this ancient. The place was dead, quiet, just the crunch of our steps and the occasional hoot of an owl. We weren't scared, not yet. It felt more like an adventure, like we were explorers in some forbidden zone. After about an hour, we got tired and plopped down under this huge pecan tree in the middle of the cemetery. It was gnarled, ancient, like it had seen everything the place had to offer. We sat there, catching our breath, joking about how creepy it'd be if something actually happened. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves, and I remember feeling this weird chill, not from the cold, but from something else. It was like the air got heavier, like the cemetery was waking up around us. I laughed it off, told Ryan it was just the vibe of the place messing with me. He nodded, but I could tell he felt it too. Forest Hill was isolated, cut off from the world by that fence in the highway, And sitting there, we were the only living things for acres. I kept glancing at the shadows, half expecting to see something move. Nothing did, but that feeling of being watched started creeping in, slow and subtle, like the cemetery itself was sizing us up. We kept talking, trying to ignore it, but deep down, I knew we'd pushed our luck too far. Sitting under that old pecan tree in Forest Hill Cemetery, the night felt heavier, like the darkness was closing in. Ryan and I were still joking, but the mood had shifted. Then, out of nowhere, we heard it. A little girl's laugh, clear and close, like she was right behind us. My heart skipped. I tried to play it cool, saying it was probably some motion-activated toy left on a kid's grave. Ryan laughed, but it was forced. We're not the type to scare easily, so we brushed it off, kept talking, trying to shake the unease. But that laugh stuck with me, echoing in my head. The cemetery was so quiet otherwise, just the wind and our voices, and that made it worse. I started feeling eyes on me, like something was out there, just beyond the glow of our flashlights. I told myself it was the place getting to me. Old graves, creepy vibes, 3 a.m., nonsense. Then Ryan froze, staring at the wooded edge of the cemetery, maybe 50 feet away. He whispered he saw someone in the shadows, just a shape, gone when he blinked. My stomach dropped. We both stood, flashlights sweeping the trees, but saw nothing. The air felt thick now, like we weren't alone. Then that laugh came again, same as before, sharp and childish, and this time we heard leaves crunching like footsteps closing in. That was it. We bolted, no words, just pure instinct. My heart was hammering as we ran down the hill toward the old gate, flashlights bouncing, casting wild shadows. The crunching followed us, too close, like whatever it was wasn't letting up. I kept thinking about that laugh, how it didn't sound right, how it felt like it was chasing us. We hit the fence, scrambled over, and sprinted to my car parked a block away. I fumbled the keys, hands shaking, and when we piled in, I locked the doors before even starting the engine. As I peeled out onto the highway, I glanced in the rear view, half expecting to see something. Nothing but darkness. We didn't talk, just sat there, breathing hard, until we hit a gas station a few miles away. That's when we noticed the back door of my car was open. Just a crack, but enough to make my blood run cold. I know we didn't touch it. No reason to. We checked the back seat, hearts in our throats, but it was empty. I slammed the door shut, got back in, and drove off, knuckles white on the wheel. Ryan said maybe we imagined it. The laugh, the footsteps, but I could tell he didn't believe that. Neither did I. Forest Hill felt alive that night, like it was watching us, waiting for us to slip up. I've never run that fast in my life, and I've never felt so helpless, like no matter how far we got, we couldn't escape that place. I still get chills telling this story, that same prickling feeling of being watched. I don't know if it was a ghost, a prank, or just our minds messing with us, but something was out there. I haven't gone back to Forest Hill since, and I don't plan to. Some places you just don't mess with, and that cemetery's one of them. Story 3. My name's Liam Parker, and when I was 19, I got roped into one of the dumbest ideas of my life. It was a cloudy summer day in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The sky had this eerie reddish hue, like the world was holding its breath. My buddy Jacob, a total goofball, showed up at my place with a Coke in hand, grinning like he had a plan. He said we should check out Old Salem Cemetery, this tiny, creepy plot of land across town. I laughed, told him it was random, but honestly, we had no classes the next day, and I was curious. Old Salem's not your typical cemetery. It's small, maybe 100 tombstones, all weathered and archaic, like they've been there since the 1800s. It's got this gothic metal fence, woods on 2 sides, a quiet road on one, and an old abandoned building on the other. The place just screams bad vibes, like it's been forgotten by time. No one visits, no fresh flowers, just moss and cracked stones. Jacob was hyped, and after some back and forth, I caved. We hopped in his Honda, and he drove us out there, the sky getting darker as we went. He parked a few hundred feet down the road, so it wouldn't look suspicious. Small town, low traffic, but you never know who's watching. We cut through the woods to avoid being seen, hopping the short fence like it was nothing. The air was thick, humid, and the woods felt too quiet, like even the birds knew to stay away. Jacob took the lead, all excited, weaving through the tombstones, reading names and dates, most of them barely legible. I followed, my sneakers sinking into the soft ground, trying to keep up. The stones were from the 19th century, some so worn you couldn't make out the words. It was cool at first, like stepping into a history book, but the longer we stayed, the more I felt off. It was like the cemetery was watching us, sizing us up. I kept glancing at the woods, then at that abandoned building next door. Its windows were smudged with dirt, the kind of place you'd see in a horror movie. I told Jacob it was creepy, and he just grinned, saying that was the point. But I couldn't shake this feeling, like eyes were on me, hidden just out of sight. I'm not one to get spooked easily, but Old Salem felt different, isolated, like we were the only two people left in the world. Jacob was still poking around, oblivious, but I kept scanning the shadows, my gut telling me we weren't alone. I caught myself staring at the building again, and for a split second, I swear I saw someone at one of the windows, just a shape, gone when I blinked. My heart hitched, but I didn't say anything, not yet. Jacob was already talking about checking out the building, and I was starting to regret coming along. The cemetery was quiet, too quiet, and that reddish sky wasn't helping. I felt exposed, like we'd walked into something we didn't understand. All I wanted was to get out, but Jacob was set on exploring, and I wasn't about to leave him there alone. That reddish sky over Old Salem Cemetery was making everything feel wrong, and I was already on edge, standing among those ancient tombstones. Jacob, of course, was all in, wandering off to check out the abandoned building next to the cemetery. I stayed by a cracked headstone, heart thumping, telling him we should just leave. I kept feeling watched, like the woods or the graves themselves were staring. Then, I saw it again. A figure in the building's dirty window, just for a second, before it ducked away. I yelled to Jacob that someone was watching us, but he was too curious, circling the building to find a way in. I froze, not wanting to follow, but too spooked to stay alone. He shouted that he found a door, and against my better judgment, I started toward him. Then I heard a loud crack, like a branch snapping, and I spun around. There was this older guy, maybe in his 50s, gray hair, black raincoat, standing a few rows away. He had this intense look, mustache twitching, and before I could say anything, he screamed, "Get out!" It wasn't just loud. It was bone-chilling, like it shook the air. I swear I saw birds scatter from the trees. My head spun, my vision blurred, and the next thing I knew, everything went black. I came to with Jacob dragging me through the woods, his face pale, yelling at me to run. I was dizzy, legs wobbly, but I stumbled to my feet, heart racing. Behind us, I heard footsteps, heavy and fast, crunching through the underbrush. I glanced back and saw a shadow moving through the trees, too close. We hit the fence, and Jacob practically threw me over it, my shirt snagging on the metal. We kept running, branches slapping my face, until we reached his Honda parked down the road. Jacob started the car before I even shut my door, tires screeching as we sped off. My chest was tight, and I could barely breathe. Jacob was freaking out, saying he'd gone into the building and found this creepy symbol painted on the floor. Some kind of satanic sigil, he thought, surrounded by weird dolls with button eyes. He heard the guy scream and ran out to find me, passed out, that man walking toward me slowly, like he wasn't in a hurry. That's when he grabbed me and bolted. I don't know why I fainted. Never happened before or since. But it felt like that scream pulled something out of me. Old Salem felt alive that day, like it wanted us gone. We were miles away before we calmed down, but I kept looking in the side mirror, half expecting to see that guy behind us. I felt helpless, Like no matter how fast we ran, we couldn't escape whatever was in that cemetery. Jacob thinks it was just some crazy old guy protecting the place, but I'm not sure. That building, that scream, it was all too strange. I haven't been back to Old Salem, and I don't plan to. Even now, talking about it, I get this sick feeling, like something's still watching, waiting for me to step back into its territory. I don't know what we stumbled into, but it's the kind of thing that sticks with you, makes you question what's out there in the dark. Story 4. My name's Emily Hayes, and a couple of years ago, I went through something I still can't fully wrap my head around. It was July, my grandpa's birthday, and I decided to visit his grave at Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester, New York. Grandpa and I were super close when I was growing up. He was the kind of guy who'd sneak me extra cookies and tell me stories about his old fishing trips. He passed a few years back, and I hadn't been to his grave as much as I wanted. Rochester's about an hour from my apartment, and my family, who lived closer, had already visited together. I had to go alone, which felt right in a way. Just me and my memories. The day was gloomy, with thick gray clouds and a steady drizzle that made everything feel heavier. There's something about a rainy cemetery that just sinks into your bones. I drove up to Mount Hope, a sprawling old place with rolling hills and ancient trees. The kind of cemetery that feels like it's holding on to secrets. The gatekeeper asked for the plot number, and I gave it to him, my voice a little shaky from the quiet drive. He waved me through, and I navigated the winding paths, trying to remember the way. I'd only been there a couple of times, and never as the driver, so it took me a while to find Grandpa's stone. The place was nearly empty. No other cars, no visitors. Just me and the rain pattering on my windshield. It felt like the world had gone silent, like I was the only one left. I parked on the grass near his plot, grabbed the bouquet of daisies I'd brought, his favorite, and stepped out into the drizzle. The air was cool, and the scent of wet earth filled my lungs. I knelt by his headstone, tracing the carved letters of his name, and set the flowers down gently. I closed my eyes and prayed. Nothing formal, just talking to him in my head, telling him I missed him, hoping he was at peace. The rain tapped my hood, steady and soft, and for a moment it was just me and Grandpa, like old times. But even then, I felt this prickle on the back of my neck, like someone was watching. I tried to ignore it. Cemeteries can make you feel that way, especially on a day like this. Mount Hope is huge, but it felt so isolating, like I'd stepped out of the real world into something else. I kept my eyes closed, focusing on my prayer, but that feeling grew, subtle but persistent, like a whisper I couldn't quite hear. I told myself it was just grief messing with me, or the rain, or the fact that I was alone in this massive silent place. I didn't see anyone else, not a single soul, but I couldn't shake the sense that I wasn't as alone as I thought. When I finished praying, I took a deep breath, ready to open my eyes, not knowing that moment would change everything. I just wanted to honor Grandpa, but Mount Hope had other plans, and I was about to find out what they were. I stood by Grandpa's grave in Mount Hope Cemetery, the rain soaking through my jacket, feeling that strange prickle of being watched. I opened my eyes after praying, and my breath caught. 5 rows down, directly across from me, was an old man staring right at me. He looked exactly like Grandpa. Same kind eyes, same gray hair, same weathered face. My heart stopped. I blinked hard, thinking it was a trick of the rain or my grief, but when I looked again, he was gone. No one was there, just wet grass and tombstones. Chills ran down my spine, and I stood frozen, scanning the empty cemetery. Mount Hope felt like it was holding me in place. The silence so heavy I could barely move. I whispered, "Grandpa?" But only the rain answered. Shaking, I got back in my car, said a quick, "Love you," and drove off, my hands gripping the wheel. The road out of Rochester was quiet. Just me on Prospect Road. Dense forest on both sides. The kind of place where deer cross at dusk. The rain kept falling, blurring my windshield, and I tried to focus, but my mind was stuck on that figure. Then, up ahead, I saw someone on the roadside. No sidewalk, no path, just a lone person standing there. As I got closer, my stomach dropped. It was him again, the man who looked like Grandpa, standing still, watching my car. My heart pounded so hard, I thought it had burst. I swerved, tires screeching, and nearly lost control, skidding to a stop in the middle of the road. I whipped around to look back, expecting him, but there was just a deer staring at me, its eyes glinting in my headlights. I sat there, trembling, trying to catch my breath, feeling like the world was closing in. I checked for cars, got back in my lane, and drove home, my head spinning. That night, I felt off, not sick, but wrong, like something was stuck in my mind. I crashed early, exhausted, but at 2 a.m. my phone rang, an unknown number. My heart raced. Calls at that hour are never good. I answered, hearing static, loud and crackling. I said, "Hello?" and got more static. Then for half a second, I swear I heard Grandpa's voice, faint, saying my name. I froze, every nerve on edge, and tried to speak, but the call cut to silence. I sat up, shaking, staring at my phone, too scared to call back. The next day, I contacted my phone provider to trace the number, but they said there wasn't enough data, which felt like a brush-off. That day in Mount Hope left me rattled. I keep telling myself it was my imagination, grief, rain, loneliness messing with me. But that face, that voice, they felt so real. I felt helpless. Like no matter where I went, something was following me, watching from just out of sight. I haven't been back to the cemetery since, and I don't know if I can. Talking about it now, I still get goosebumps, wondering if Grandpa was trying to reach me or if Mount Hope played some kind of trick. It sounds crazy, but it happened, and I'm left questioning everything, feeling like I'll never shake that sense of being watched, alone, and completely out of control.